And I also, I suspect, attend the Jay-Z concert tonight. In addition, my godmother, Jewel Lawson, who is single-handedly heading up Republicans for Jones. Every family has at least one good Republican. Also, my mother-in-law, Eleanor Payne, and I must be a decent son-in-law, otherwise she wouldn't be here, Mom Payne. Of course, my wife of 23 years and 18 days, Lisa Payne Jones, my number one political advisor, and then the grand dame of the Jones family, Margaret Diane Jones, who served for over 40 years with the Cleveland Public School District. Now, I'm in, thank you. I'm in my 20th year of public service. And I think that what has been expected of me during that period of time is pretty basic and pretty fundamental. There's the expectation that I would work hard and provide leadership that makes a difference. There's no question that I work hard, putting in 60 or 70 hours of work a week, 99% of which is devoted not to the practice of law, but to serving my 1.3 million constituents here in Cuyahoga County. So there's an expectation of hard work, there's an expectation of leadership that makes a difference. And finally, there's an expectation of independence, a willingness to stand up when conscience and when analysis dictate. So when we talk about whether or not we need an agent of change, an independent voice, as some people during this election season might say, a maverick, we already have that on the board of Cuyahoga County Commissioners. I humbly submit in the person of Peter Lawson Jones. Now, one thing I hate about campaigns is that it requires you to do something that your parents said was improper. And that is to talk about yourself, to brag, to be rather immodest. So, since my mom's here and I don't want to offend her, rather than talk myself about the things that I have done, not things I've promised to do, but things that I've done during my tenure as a member of the Board of County Commissioners, I instead want to provide you with some job references, as it were, some recommendations, the names of some people that you can talk to see if indeed my leadership has made a difference here in this community. So, my work ethic, leadership, how about talking to some people like those who have received grants and funding from the New Product Development and Entrepreneur Fund, 30 different companies. Or let's talk to those who received grants from the Arts and Culture's Economic Development Fund, the precursor for Issue 18. Or perhaps from those who've attended a Destination Cleveland event, the International Children's Games, the Ohio Classic Football Game, the Gravity Games. None of these would have existed but for the fact that several years ago I advocated and my colleagues agreed that the county needed to set aside significant and substantial dollars for economic development here in this community. And over the last few years we've spent $20 million. Now would we like to spend more? Absolutely, but much of the funding that is provided to the county comes with strings attached. It has to be devoted and allocated mostly for health and human services, which has been the fundamental responsibility established by statute in the state of Ohio for county government. If you wonder whether or not what I did as convening and chairing Cuyahoga Next Advisors, formerly known as the Blue Ribbon Economic Development Task Force, whether or not that has made a difference, I would suggest that you talk with those who operate the Beechwood Chamber of Commerce, those that operate the Mayfield Business Education Foundation, Alliance Foundation, perhaps have a conversation with those from Midtown Corridor, because they have received grants through our Innovation Zone program. Or perhaps, if you want to know what a difference that our North Coast Opportunities Technology Fund has made, You only need to open up yesterday's newspaper, the business section. Have a conversation with Aaron Lemieux of Tremont Electric, LLC, who's received one of our first loans under that program and is going to be able to take advantage of that fundamental and critical funding in order to put in place that which he needs so that his wonderful and extraordinary company that captures kinetic energy, energy generated from human movement, and converts that and stores it and converts it into energy that can be used to power handheld devices like iPods or cell phones, or ultimately implantable medical devices like pacemakers. The county is providing that opportunity for him. If you wonder whether or not the Cuyahoga County Fatherhood Initiative, which I proposed and which exists today, is making a difference, then call, and I believe he might be here today, Eric Chapman, or talk to any of the 7,000 fathers who have called our hotline and been directed to services that have made them better dads, that have helped provide opportunities for them to secure job training and jobs, that help them work their way through the thicket of the juvenile court bureaucracy on issues of child support, visitation, and custody. Have a conversation with those men, but more importantly, have a conversation with their children, who are the ultimate beneficiaries of our Cuyahoga County Fatherhood Initiative. And to ascertain whether or not my advocacy on behalf of the arts and cultural community that generates $1.3 billion in economic activity and sustains 3,600 men and women in full-time employment throughout our community, I have a host of names of people that you can call. Ask Tom Shorgle, Community Partnership on Arts and Culture. Talk to Stephanie Morrison Herbeck of the Near West Theater. Talk to Greg Ash of Kiramu. Talk to Jim Levin of Ingenuity. Talk to Jamie Ireland of the Cleveland Orchestra. All of them will tell you the difference my leadership in passing Issue 18, in establishing the Regional Arts and Culture District, in establishing the Cuyahoga County Arts and Cultural Leadership Task Force, the difference that's made for our arts and cultural organizations who are in dire straits because much of the funding that came from businesses and corporations had diminished as our corporate community began to merge, as it began to close its doors in far too many instances. Finally, to find out whether my Smart Start Plus program has made a difference in the lives of some young men and young women, high schoolers, who come from less affluent areas. Let me suggest that you simply talk to any of those young men and young women who received jobs this summer, who otherwise wouldn't have had summer job opportunities, that my staff and I worked hard to create, working in tandem with the private sector. And finally, if you want to determine whether or not I've exhibited the kind of independence that you need to see, that you're entitled to, simply ask yourselves. You know that a year ago, with a number of forces aligned against me, many members of the business community, some of my good friends in labor, the plain dealer, and a couple of my colleagues, I said no to raising the sales tax as a way of paying for the Medical Mart and Convention Center. I said there was a better way. Let's get the private sector to kick in a fair share. Let's make sure, let's raise the hotel and bed tax that's paid by visitors, and let's also make an adjustment in the restaurant tax that's a more progressive tax than what you have with the sales tax. And then when we talked about tearing down the Marcel Boyer Tower, the Ameritrust Tower, I said no to that expenditure of $40 million of taxpayer money. Instead saying, let's retain it, let's adaptively reuse it, and I think that I've been proven to be correct on that as well. So don't ask me. You don't even have to ask my friends or staff. Ask the many men and women and the institutions in the community that have benefited from my leadership here in Cuyahoga County, a community that I greatly love. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Deputy Sutherland, is 6 minutes remaining from your 10 minutes to speak of rebuttal time.